Welcome back, Flow Staters. We are so excited to be here. It's been almost a year since our last episode came
Is that true?
out. Yeah, March 25th. I just thought
Oh my God. So much
we've
can
been
happen.
lifing.
So much can happen in a year.
No, season 5.
Season 5. We're back. We're back. We're back. Speaking of changes, Nora, why don't you give us a little update on what's changed for you in the last year?
A lot has changed in the last year. My husband and I were looking for a house last year, and we found a house in Rhode Island. So we moved and closed on a house in November of 2024. And literally the moment we knew we were getting a house, I was like, okay, I'm ready to make a baby. And we conceived, and we are 25 weeks pregnant, which is crazy also.
What
We're very
trimester is
excited.
that? 2.
Almost there. Yeah, we just counted down 15 weekends left until our world is changed forever for the good. So very excited and excited to share a lot more about what I've learned already. And I know I still have so much more to learn. But yeah, excited for this next chapter and for what's to come.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot that has gone on for you too with work stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've had my own practice. I went full time in my practice in 2022, but I've had it since 2020, which is also crazy to believe that the world shut down 5 years ago this month, which that's really when a lot of things shifted for me and opening my private practice and really seeing what my desires were. And then this last year and a half, I've been supporting another company that is a virtual healthcare service called Side by Care. And I helped to build out our whole nutrition protocol on I built out our whole nutrition protocol for the program, and then we launched with mental health in the beginning of 2024. And it's been really good. I'm a clinical operations is my role there, and I've been enjoying it, managing and leading our team there. And I'm excited. I've been kind of balancing both, but with baby on the way, definitely have been considering what I want my life to look like in the future. And I think there's just so much unknown in the next coming months. And I've had a harder time just kind of I don't know what I'm going to need, or I don't know how I'm going to lean into motherhood or what my life is going to look like. And just kind of leaning into that. It's okay that I don't know. I'm a super type A planner my entire life. This is something that I have no control over, and that's okay. Just being okay with that, which is very new for me.
It's like the hardest
Yeah.
thing. I think the human body and the human mind just wants to know so badly. And
Yeah.
when we can't know, we have to find ways to find peace with that because it can create so much anxiety in our bodies.
Yeah. I've just been trying to practice from more of a mental gymnastics standpoint and visualization practice of how I would like things to go, and trying to put myself I know it's going to be hard, labor itself. It's also going to be very short. And then what happens after, again, there's only so much that I have say over, if the baby sleeps well or is feeding well or this, that, and the other. And again, just being okay that I don't have to know it all, and I trust that I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'm grateful that I have support, but I think it'll be a very eye-opening and huge learning experience for sure. But I'm excited.
Yeah. So excited. And
How about you?
we're so excited for you to share your journey with all of us. I'm speaking for myself, but I can't wait to hear about the whole thing. So I'm sure everyone else feels that way too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So last March, I shared on the podcast about my divorce, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So divorce is official. I moved to Arizona in November to move in with a boyfriend, which is
Ooh.
wild, and has been so good. So I'm coming at you from Arizona. So this is the first winter since I was 7 that I haven't skied, which is an interesting kind of like life change for me, but I'm loving it so much. Arizona is amazing. If anyone's listening from the Phoenix area, please reach out to me. I'd love to like go on a hike or something. I've been building a little community here and it's really fun and exciting. And yeah, I've really just been like super head down working on Maria, focused on kind of my life values and mission of supporting women and wanting Maria to be the avenue for that. And it's been super fulfilling and exciting. While it kind of, I went into this year being like, okay, I have 2 priorities this year, and they are continuing to create an impact through my business and building the healthiest relationship that I can. I think
Mm.
going through divorce, I am so grateful for that relationship and so grateful to have had that experience because I learned so much about what I do want. And I learned so much about how to relationship better,
Yeah.
how to communicate better. And honestly, I learned a lot of my downfalls. Like, I learned areas where I really wasn't showing up in the way that I wanted to. And I'm excited to be able to have that awareness and that curiosity to do it differently in a new relationship. And my partner is just so incredible, and the way that we communicate is so different. And I'm really grateful to have this experience as well. So that's been really exciting. And I get to chase him around because he's a professional athlete and watch him compete. And I'm kind of in this like new Monica era of really giving myself to someone else and nurturing
Mm.
someone, which I feel like historically I've brought a lot of masculine energy into my relationship, but also just into the world. So to be able to have this period where I'm learning to be in my feminine and actually really, really enjoying the nurturing has been pretty incredible. And it makes me excited for, the future and the potential of like having my own family one day, because I more than ever feel that desire to be like, okay, I really do want to be a mom. Where I think before I was very scared of what that would look like because I always have wanted to be a boss and not necessarily a
Mm-hmm.
mom. And lately I've been like, I really want to be a mom and not as much a boss. So like juggling that, right? It's an interesting kind of shift for me. But it's been really fun. And I'd say a lot of self-discovery has happened.
I love that. I just think it's awesome to be able to reinvent yourself like at any time. Like, I don't know, that to me is like so inspiring, and just that nothing is fixed, nothing is permanent, and just having that opportunity, like if you wanted to, you can change everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I struggle with that sometimes too. And I don't know if anyone listening can relate. Maybe you've gone through divorce or ended a really long relationship, but there is like a little bit of guilt that follows you around of like, oh, I made a really big commitment. I said forever to this person, and then I took it back.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different angles of that, right? Like someone else making you feel guilty for changing your mind, or going back on what you said, and then you also processing that for myself of like, okay, does that mean I have commitment issues? Like, can I say
Hmm.
forever again? And what does that mean? Um, so I think that's been an interesting kind of like healing angle of it too, is yes, it's so amazing to be able to pivot your life and your previous decisions. But I think that that also comes with a little bit of necessary healing and deeper understanding of, ooh, like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I can only imagine, but I'm so proud of you. Like, it's been really
Thank
cool
you.
to witness and just support each other through these different seasons of life. And yeah, I think I'm sure you're not alone. I think so many people listening will be like, oh, thank you. And that's really, really helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting. It's
You
definitely
spoke
exciting.
about nurturing yourself, and I feel like that's kind of a good lead into our topic today because we want to talk about nourishment, which it's funny, like I just love that word so much. And it doesn't, obviously, I'm a dietitian, but it doesn't just have to be from the form of nutrition. So I created a program a year ago called Nourish for this reason. And it was because it was truly what I needed to just like nurture and nourish my body in all of the meanings of the world. And I definitely want to hear like what you think of when you think of the word nourish or nourishment. Um, and just like the slowing down and kind of like coming back to yourself, the nervous system support that's now everywhere, or so it feels.
Yeah. When I hear nourish, I think of filling up your cup. And so that can be nutritionally, emotionally, spiritually. Um, there's just so much that can go into nourishing your soul and nourishing your body. And I think that the two go hand in hand. You hear of people having chronic illness or pain, and it can stem both from like what you're putting in your body, but also your mind too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how you're regulating that. I shared about the itchy butthole, and like it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't a GI thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily like a nutrition thing, or it was like a stress. It was a stress thing. Um, and so I think nourishing is finding ways to like feel really whole as a being.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And it can come from relationships, external and internal. It can come from your environment. It can be things you do for yourself. So many different angles to take here. But I think, today we're going to talk a little bit more about the nutrition side of things, but it doesn't negate the importance that, like, I really view nutrition as a piece of the puzzle. And all of these other things are also, in my eyes, equally as important. Most often, it's not necessarily a nutrition thing that we need. It's like our body just needs to be nurtured and cared for and listened to and validated. And we
Yeah.
really do that.
And you and I have talked about this before, but I think it's so common as females. You and I have experienced it. You've seen it with your clients. I've seen it with health coaching clients. Like it seems like one of the number one things that I find myself saying to myself and to clients, customers, etc., is like, let's look at how much you're eating and if that's enough to nourish you. Would you say that the majority of women are probably under eating?
Yes, easily. And I would not even just limit it to women, to be honest. Like, even a
Mm,
lot of my male clients are not getting enough nutrition. Um, and it shows up differently. And we'll talk today about like what that even looks like from both physical and mental standpoint. But it's not just women. So I do want to acknowledge that also.
yeah. That makes sense. I've truly only worked with women, so that's where I'm coming from when I say it. But
Yeah.
it would make sense that it's across the board. And I think from my personal experience, like I know that I have a tendency to undereat, and for me, it's not a weight loss thing. It's not like a
Mm-hmm.
restriction thing, which I know for that can be very common and can be other people's experience. But to me, it's just like getting sucked into work, and it's like a focus thing. I'll get completely down a rabbit hole, and then hours have gone by and I haven't eaten, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Which puts me on a blood sugar roller coaster, and the rest of my day
Yeah.
is absolute trash. I usually get a headache, and then I can't focus for the rest of the day. So it does me no good, and I know that, and I'm getting better at it. But I'd be curious to hear from you, like in your what has been your experience with it, and what do you see with clients, like of where it's stemming from?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I feel like I'm on the polar opposite side of the coin. Like, my body sensations feel so overwhelming at times. Like, I'm so in tune with how I'm feeling that if I'm feeling off in any way, whether I've just eaten or I'm not eating enough or I'm not drinking enough or I've had too much caffeine, and there's so many times when I wish I could just turn the volume down a little bit in my body and be like, and I'll validate myself and be like, okay, yes, I need to eat or I need to XYZ, whatever the thing is. Um, but yeah, like I can't say I've like intentionally or knowingly missed a meal or a thing because I've been so focused. And that sometimes I'm envious of myself. Like my partner is similar in that he could go all day and not necessarily take a break, where I do not have that experience. And that's okay too. I think, go ahead, sorry.
Literally, that's like one of my favorite reasons that when you and I are together, I feel so nourished, because you're like, oh, I need to make lunch now. Nora will like make me my little like tuna salads, like lunch. And I'm like, oh my God. And I think you are someone who's hyper aware. I'm sure we'll talk about like maybe hunger cues or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
like, which I think is what is missing for a lot of people. We just like forget to realize we're hungry.
Yeah.
Um, but you're so tuned into it that it's like such a good experience for me. And I think I've learned a lot from you. I was just thinking about this last week. I think I was like, oh, I'm hungry. And I was like, oh, Nora would be so proud of me that I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. Like I'm noticing it. So
I love that.
I don't know if anyone out there has people in their life who have better hunger cues with them, then like spend time with them and then you will start to catch
Mm.
on.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I feel like we've learned a lot from each other too, which is awesome. And I was going to speak to that, and even how like my relationship to food has evolved over the years. But I'll speak firstly, like what I see in my experience working with clients is often that we have grown up, unfortunately, in this time where people were very thin obsessed. Like even our parents may have raised us during a time when they were super conscious about their weight and being fat free or sugar free or this free, that. And that weighs on their children. That shaped how they ate growing up, most likely, and how they looked at their bodies, how they looked at their relationship to food. And if your parent is modeling this behavior, they're obsessed about their appearance or following Weight Watchers or paleo or low carb or the South Beach diet, like literally any label you could insert here. So often that is kind of the stem or the root of where this original relationship comes from, and the desire of likely wanting to be thin. And then that can be more restriction, and that can be ignoring the cues. Like we are born whole with all of our internal signals. We've talked about this in past episodes. Like you cry when you're hungry, you cry when you need to sleep, you cry when you need to poop, and rinse and repeat. Like all everything else is a learned behavior after that, and it's just getting back to like that connection is still there. We just have to be able to tune back into it. And oftentimes in the beginning, especially if we've been ignoring this for who knows, 2/3 of your life, your whole life that you consciously remember, it's not like a switch that you can unfortunately just flip on and off and having compassion for that too. And so I won't say unfortunately, I'll say what is typically needed is almost scheduling in those meal times and giving your body an external reminder if you can't rely on the internal reminder first at
Mm-hmm.
first. Even just waking and having something to eat within that first hour or so is going to help kind of jumpstart your body's rhythms, from movement and motility to just helping your body to wake up. And that is going to be supportive, I will say, for most people. Not everyone, but most people.
I can definitely speak to that from a personal like position of I noticed as simple as it was when I started adding heavy cream to my coffee as opposed to just drinking coffee black. That changed things for me.
Mm,
And I think it has evolved for me over time. Like that was kind of the first thing that I really changed. And I don't even know if that was mindful of like,
yeah,
oh, I need to like jumpstart my metabolism in the morning or eat more or whatever. That was just something I did. And I noticed a difference. Then I added like a scoop of protein before I had my coffee. That was huge. And then I'd have like a breakfast at like 10 o'clock, which is kind of still typically I don't like eating when I first get up. Like I kind of want to wait until I feel quote unquote hungry.
mm,
And so I'll do the protein, I'll have my coffee, and then within like 2 hours, I'll have a big breakfast.
mm-hmm,
But that change, I feel like changed so much for me. And I've even noticed like bowel movements are super regular now. I'm having like, I poop every morning and it's like a very
yeah,
good quality poop. Energy is better
we love
throughout the
that.
day and I will get hungry around lunchtime. So it's kind of then like created this rhythm in my body that has been game changing for energy and focus, for pooping, for all of the
Yeah,
things. And now it's a new normal for me. But I think even like starting with just like heavy cream in the coffee, like for a lot of people, I bet that would be a great first step.
yeah, yeah. Something to just I like having something in your belly before coffee for sure. Just in general, for a lot of people I work with who have more
Totally.
GI kind of sensitivities and whatnot. Also, um, I would imagine you maybe had a similar experience to myself too. Like I grew up doing an aesthetic sport, and I don't really remember being super focused about what my body looked like, but I also didn't really get education from my coaches on fuel my body for my
Mm.
sport or really how to support myself. And I do think that's where a lot of my gymnastics injuries kind of stemmed from. But I feel so naive because I didn't even know what eating disorders were until I went to college. And I was studying nutrition and I was sitting in a room full of people who openly shared that they had either a history or an active eating disorder. And then when I went into my clinical program to become a dietitian, it was even more prevalent. It didn't help that I was at NYU for my grad school alongside a lot of thin people who were very conscious and also cared a lot about their appearance. And I found myself like starting to shift some of my thoughts and behaviors to the people who I was surrounding myself with.
Mm.
Talk about how important your environment is. And I started eating less and like being more self conscious about what and how much I was eating. When prior to that, like I didn't really think twice about it. Um, and this kind of overlapped with when I came off of birth control and was having some of these health issues that developed when I was still in undergrad. But my weight fluctuated and like I was the lowest weight that I had been when I was in grad school. And then when I was having a lot of the post birth control issues, my weight went up really significantly. And it's really interesting. I've been getting a lot of memories on my Instagram and Facebook recently. Facebook, LOL. Shout out to when you used to post every single part of your life on Facebook. If you grew up doing
Got to build an
that.
album. I went out last night.
Yeah, the club. um, like looking at these meals that I was eating, even when I was in my clinical program, I was 100% under eating, very low protein, very plant heavy, which again, nothing against it, but I was not adequately fueling my body. And this was also when I had B12 deficiency, my heart palpitations, low energy, low mood, low libido, like acne at the wazoo, all of these physical signs. And so much of it was focused around finding what was wrong. What's the test? What's the colonoscopy going to tell me? And honestly, I was not nourishing myself, and my body wasn't able to digest and absorb the nutrition that I even was eating. So, one, I want to share this because I was already stocked with 5 years of nutrition education. Two, my environment played such a huge role in how I was perceiving my own body. I felt huge next to these girls because I've always been muscular, yet I was not huge, and I was very self-conscious about it. And three is just always being a student, like always learning. Even 3 years ago, the first time I wore a continuous glucose monitor, I think that was a point where I was like, wow, I'm still experiencing a lot of these blood sugar spikes and crashes, and no wonder I feel like shit. I'm tanking at this time every day when I eat this Go Macro bar that's meant for people who are going on a hike. I'm sitting at my desk, pounding sugar. But just to say that, like I said in the beginning, like you can always change. Even your body's changing. And being pregnant now, this is the most free I have ever felt in my body. And it is like the coolest, most liberating experience to literally not give an F about how much I'm eating. If anytime I get a pang of hunger, I'm like, nope, I need to do something about it because it's not just about me anymore. I'm relaxing my belly, not sucking in my stomach anymore. Like so many things that I've noticed. I'm like, wow, I didn't notice before that I still may have been kind of overanalyzing or withholding, not necessarily restricting, but not completely allowing myself the way that I am now. I never want to go back.
Yeah. Wow, that's so
It's
interesting. I'm curious, when you were at NYU and you started to kind of have that experience of um, starting to restrict, maybe to uh, mirror people around you,
mm-hmm,
were you aware of it at the time? Or is this like a retrospective awareness that you're having?
much more retrospective, honestly, because even like the ways that I was eating and stuff, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to not eat protein or I'm not going to eat this food because I want to be thin. I honestly, I think it's more looking back on it. But I definitely was like trying to lose weight when I was there.
And would you say that you believe now that that correlated to some of the menstrual problems? And I know a lot of it was like post-birth control related, but do you think that
Yeah,
that played a role in it as well?
for sure. I mean, I experienced almost a 20-pound swing within 6 months from when I got my colonoscopy in September of 2018 to March of 2019. And I think my body went from like, okay, you can restrict and sometimes you lose weight, but if you get to a point where your body just slows everything down in your metabolism and you can have low thyroid, which makes you gain weight, or the stress hormones, I think my body kind of flipped and then I gained a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at photos of myself from then and how swollen my face was and just like I look incredibly different, um, it was it was definitely my body being like, hey, things are not okay in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so interesting. I think you mentioned too, like, oh, maybe you felt this way too, being in an aesthetic sport. I think
Mm-hmm.
I was so young when I was in gymnastics that I didn't notice. And I have to say, like, I am so grateful to be naturally thin. My mom is very
Yeah.
thin. Um, and then my sport after gymnastics was skiing. And it's like almost a disadvantage to be thin in downhill ski racing because it's gravity and you want to weigh more to get downhill. You want some thick thighs, you want a big booty, muscular. And so I think I just had a different experience where it didn't matter what I put in my body, I was thin. Um, and it wasn't really until I was off birth control, late 20s, early 30s, where I was noticing body changes that I didn't like
Mm-hmm.
because I think things like, muscle wasn't staying on my body as easily. And it just wasn't as easy as it had always been for me. And that's when I really keyed into like how I was nourishing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wasn't like you said, we don't learn even as athletes. You and I spent a
Yep.
lot of our life as athletes, and a coach never said like before a meet or before a race, like we want to make sure that we have carbs for our bodies to use for energy. And we want to make sure that we are eating enough protein for muscle repair. And like those conversations weren't had. And it wasn't until I was a quote unquote like recreational adult athlete where have been running these ultra marathons and doing these races where fueling is essential or you're going to bonk in the middle of the mountains and it's going to be like a life or death situation,
Yeah.
where I was like, I have to learn how to fuel. I have to learn what works for my body because I'm going on a 7-hour run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so for me, it's been like through self exploration and later in life that I feel like I've really been like, oh, interesting. Like, what is this and how does it
Mm-hmm.
function? And I really noticed it in the last year, truthfully, the last 50K that I trained for. Last year, I feel like I was like in the best shape of my life. Maybe it was coming out of a divorce and having more time on my hands. And I was very like regimented with my strength training. And I just started eating way more protein. So I think I was finally building muscle again. And I was like, whoa, like this feels so good. I feel high energy. I'm noticing
Yeah.
like muscle gains, which obviously feels great. But then I started training for an ultra and I was starving, like
Mm.
so hungry. And I couldn't feed the beast. Like I couldn't feed my body enough. And I started to feel a lot of signs of overtraining.
Mm.
My cycle was changing. I noticed like more hair loss. Um, I was ravenous and not sleeping well, like all of those things where it was just like very apparent that my body was craving more fuel, to the point where
Yeah.
I just started like chugging milk because I was like, I just need calories.
That's awesome. I love that.
But I think just to show the like differences in experience too, where maybe I just wasn't exposed. Like you were in dietetic school, nutrition school, and I think that you were probably exposed to a lot of different people and things than maybe I was, and our experiences are very different. But I think it's crazy to think that I didn't have insights into how I was nourishing myself until I was like 30 years old.
Yeah. But I would say that's like the common because we're not really taught or told like how to eat and how to nourish our bodies. And you and I just named a bunch of things like to kind of summarize signs of under eating or if you're not getting enough. Yes, from a hormonal perspective, you can have missing periods or you can have short periods where like you may have less than 20 or 20-day cycles, mood changes, low libido, anxiety. And then hair changes, absolutely. You can have thinning or brittle hair that's breaking apart, losing your hair, your nails being brittle, or having even ridges on them. That's a pretty clear indication of nutrient deficiencies. Um, or they're breaking themselves. Dry skin, weight changes really in either direction, as I mentioned from my own experience. Digestive issues, you can be constipated, you can have more bloating if you're not eating enough, feeling cold, getting sick often. If you have a wound or like a bruise or a cut and it takes a longer time to heal. There are
Interesting.
so many things that our body needs energy in order to be able to do. And those are some pretty clear physical signs. And then even internally, of course, like think of the stress that your body is going through if it's not getting enough on a regular basis, and that can also impact internal systems or just more from like the mood and energy and brain difficulty concentrating, some other things. If your body's like, I just gotta do what I can to exist, I can't do much more than that.
Yeah. You mentioned too, which I think will be a question that we might get from this episode, is you were like, I'd eat a macro bar at my desk. And you kind of alluded to maybe that not being the right option. Great option if you're out exercising and you need fast fuel. But if you are just trying to eat enough, eat more
Mm-hmm.
often, can you maybe talk to why some of these trail snacks or fast snacks, like more processed type foods, maybe aren't the best option?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, things like the Cliff bars and the Go Macro bars, especially, have bran rice syrup as like the number one or two ingredient. And that is so that that energy is getting directly into your cells, but it's so that you can continue to do your sport, most likely. It's like if you're on a hike, you're going to be using that energy pretty quickly versus, yes, when you're just sitting at your desk. Like, sure, a lot of those snacks are delicious, but that's not necessarily the thing that's going to help us to actually feel good. My own experience was I would experience this huge blood sugar spike and crash, and then I would feel even worse, like 90 minutes after eating it. And when I wore the CGM, I could see this huge roller coaster happening. It was just very validating to say, like, oh, okay, this is why I feel so awful.
Totally. What is
Yeah.
something now that you reach for as like a snack at your desk?
Yeah, I'll do jerky or I'll still have some like nuts and usually pair it with like a small piece of fruit or cottage cheese. I like yogurt. Again, as I was sharing, I'm not really being as particular. Like I've had more cereal this pregnancy than I've had in a really long time. And if that's what I'm
Tell
craving,
us what kind of cereal you're eating.
oh my gosh, I'm like, I love a honey bunches of oats
Yum.
with, yeah, like it's just, I've been having more milk. I've been having a lot of dairy, a lot of gluten, where
Do you notice your
I'm
body tolerating
continuing.
it differently?
Yes,
Oh my
I have
God.
no issues with gluten the way that I have the last 5 years.
That seems
Yeah,
really common, and this is a little off topic, but that seems really common for pregnancies. Is there like a reason for that?
yeah, you have immune system changes. So, like for myself, I'm not gluten intolerant per se. I don't have celiac disease, but I just noticed from an inflammation standpoint, actually, like my joints would hurt a lot and I would have lower back pain and inflammation when I would eat gluten. And your immune system is lowered during pregnancy because you have a foreign object that your body is literally growing. So your immune system is suppressed so that it does not attack the fetus that you are growing inside of you. Um, it is interesting. Like even in the first trimester, I didn't notice it at all in terms of gluten causing me issues. I've noticed it a little bit more now, and that makes sense too because there are some immune changes that happen throughout the course of the pregnancy. So it kind of
Mm-hmm.
makes sense for me. But I've heard that for others too, of like some food allergies that people experience, like especially oral allergies with fruits, like the skin's bothering people's lips and tongue, not necessarily like your throat is going to close on a food that if you have a true allergy, you could continue to avoid, most likely. But that's just been my experience.
So cool.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
one of the
crazy.
things I want to make sure we talk about is I feel like people are also going to ask, like, okay, well, what is enough? Like, like,
Yeah.
how many calories should I be eating? I still want to eat, okay, example, I still want to eat in a calorie deficit because calories in, like, if you're trying to
Mm,
lose weight, in the
yeah.
instance, if someone's trying to lose weight, which I would love to lose weight from the weight loss vocabulary and just say trying to recomposition the body. And they're trying to eat in a calorie deficit. What is enough? What does that
Yeah.
mean?
And that's where like it truly is super individualized. Like you
Totally.
can do a calorie estimation based on your height and your weight and your age and how active you are. And I feel like that's a good starting point. But honestly, even just keeping a food log for a few days and seeing where is your energy coming from. You can use, I like chronometer, depends on how you pronounce it. MyFitnessPal, of course, just don't use their energy recommendations. Um, the platform I use for my clients, it has one built in, but I think it's helpful just to like do a little reflection for yourself and see where it's coming from first. And then just reflecting, how do you feel? Like that is going to be a really big part to learning how do you function optimally. Is it higher carb? Is it higher fat? Is it high protein? Like what works best for your body? And that's where I do feel like it's more individualized. But I would say if you've been chronically under eating or not getting enough nutrition for an extended period of time, you will likely need to increase your needs, your energy intake, until your body can turn off that stress response.
Yeah.
Because you can't just keep decreasing and decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. Like your body is going to halt. It slows everything down, and then you're going to plateau.
I'd also be curious to see if you agree with this, but for me, it was like less about how many calories I was eating, and it was more about what types of calories I was eating. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for a lot of people, that could probably be something worth looking at and be a change of like how your macros are, basically, of like, are
Yeah.
you eating enough protein? And we can't talk about protein without talking about fiber and making sure women
Yeah.
are eating carbohydrates. Like carbohydrates are not the enemy, especially if you're exercising. um,
Absolutely.
I think that's something I had to learn for myself. In my past relationship, we did a lot of slow carb eating. He really liked to eat that way, and I was like, okay, sure. And
Yeah.
what I realized is that like that wasn't working for me. And I'd gotten kind of like shamed away from
Mm.
certain foods because of how he liked to eat. And when I started eating more carbohydrates and increasing protein, that was when I noticed, like you were saying, Nora, tuning into how it makes you feel to eat certain things, to eat certain amounts of certain
Yeah.
things, to eat more, and kind of finding that for myself. I've never tracked food. I've only tracked protein intake to make sure that I'm getting enough of that. And making changes for me by increasing carbs and increasing protein,
Yeah.
I feel like has allowed my athletic performance to increase. My periods are super regular now. And hopefully it's like alleviated a lot of the stress response that was in my body for a long time under eating carbs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to, I'm like perfect summary. That's kind of how I wanted to wrap it up, is like use the signs from your body. Like, yeah, is your cycle coming more consistently? Is it of the quote normal length? Are you ovulating? Like, if you're not ovulating, that's a very clear indication that your body's under stress, and then we need to identify what that source of stress is. But this is likely a component of that. I
Yeah.
would beg to say it's probably the biggest component of that. But yeah, how's your energy? How's your mood? How are you performing? what's your body composition? Are you gaining more lean mass? All of those things going to be really helpful.
Yeah. I literally just had a friend text me this morning. She's like, my period's late. Like, I've lost 15 pounds in the last 3 months. Like, what is this? Am I pregnant? And I'm like, okay, like, breathe. I'm like, are you ovulating? Like, I think that's like the first thing when you notice like cycle changes. It's like, am I still ovulating? Really tracking. She tracks basal body temperature. So it was like easy to be like, are you seeing that temperature increase? Or is your cervical mucus still there? But I think getting curious about that and ovulation is such a great indicator of overall health, cycle health, all of it.
Yeah. I hope this is just enlightening. I think like biggest thing I would love for someone to take home is that we are always students of our bodies and learning, and nothing is fixed. Like we can always make changes, we can adapt and learn how to support ourselves better. Most often we're not broken, and a lot of this stuff is fixable, and our bodies are so incredibly resilient. We just have to nourish them and give them what they need. So I hope that this can be maybe an impetus or inspiration for some of you to get curious about how you are fueling yourself, and then think even more broadly about all of these other forms of nourishment that we opened the episode with. And would love to hear your feedback and just like, how does this content land for you and what does it bring up?
I think staying curious is such a good way to end, is like, stay curious about what feels good in your body. Stay curious about what things are learned behaviors, maybe from our previous generations or from the media. But be curious and tune into your body.
Yay, we are back, baby!
We're back. Please, if you like this episode, do not forget to rate and review on whatever platform you're listening to. Come over to social and let us know what other topics you want to hear from us. Maybe it's more on pregnancy, since Nora is in that phase of her life. But yeah, come chat with us. And we're so excited to be back and be recording. And thank you for listening.